Hi people. Maybe sometimes you find yourself at a party but you don't know how to start a conversation. I have an icebreaker for you that has proven to be very fun in the past. Just find someone that you seem interested in and ask them, what's your favorite empire? I usually mean historical ones, but any will do. You might be surprised. Spoiler alert, mine's the Mongol Empire. I find that the Hordes of Europa Universalis 4 are a very fun type of nation to play. If you're like me and after some time playing and exploring the world of Anbennar, you find yourself asking, hey, why are there no Hordes? Then I would like to introduce you to the Forbidden Plains, home of the Centaurs, the Mongol Hordes on steroids of the Anbennar universe. I have spent some weeks playing Anbennar and I would often border the Forbidden Plains region, isolated by building forts to keep whatever roams there out of my lands and then safely ignore it for many of my playthroughs. The land is not great, development is low, and it's difficult to bring ships over to aid with the invasion of the Lake Federation Island which borders the north side of the plains. I had no idea what was hidden here. The geography of the Forbidden Plains is dominated by steppes and deserts. There are some ogres that hug the mountains on the western side and the strange human Lake Federation in the north of the plains themselves. Their names and mechanics are so alien that it will take some serious exploration to understand what's going on, but that's another story. Our focus here are the Centaurs roaming the plains. I've counted and there are approximately 50,000 million Centaur tags that you may choose from. They're all essentially identical, the only difference being their placement. I ended up choosing the Black Herd just because they sounded edgy and had a cool flag. They all share the same Centaur ideas and the missions, and their leaders are generated randomly initially, so it's only a temporary cosmetic choice as far as I can see. The Centaur military is the star of the show here. Centaur military technology has no infantry. The Centaurs are cavalry themselves, and their racial military really pushes it in your face. They get all the possible cavalry bonuses, 50% cavalry to infantry ratio, which does allow them to field a full cavalry army without any penalties, together with a movement speed bonus. They suffer on the naval front and on the artillery front, but that's a non-issue. One problem with having a pure cavalry army is the inability to assault forts if the walls are breached. This can be slightly annoying at times, but not on the long term, as this is fixed in a sense later. Their administration grants an envoy travel time bonus, which is excellent for hugely wide empires and some harsh treatment cost reduction. Fort defense is not an issue, as we play the Centaurs with extreme aggression and speed. No need to defend forts when you slaughter anything that moves on the map constantly. Their government is the Centaur Horde. This is the only Horde government type as we speak in the world of Anbennar. They receive additional 20% movement speed, may migrate, raise conquered provinces, and gain access to the Tribal Federation mechanics. The Tribal Allegiance is a variable that decays over time and is gained by winning battles against enemy armies and humiliating rivals. Once enough Tribal Allegiance is gained, you have three choices: free general, extra cavalry combat ability for 10 years, or 6 free cavalry units built in your capital. You may choose to let the 6 units be built, or cancel them in order to reclaim up to 6,000 manpower. Hooray! More cavalry bonuses. The Centaurs have their own little religion, the Ikmagtal. This simple religion just has some baseline bonuses to Horde unity and cavalry shock and has no possible heresies as we speak. It's just there and doesn't affect the game much. I eventually switched to Ravelian for the lulz, but I just chose tolerance ideas early and stuck with the Ikmagtal for most of the game, converting only via the expel race mechanic. In the beginning, there is a general Brownian movement happening in the plains. Every Centaur Horde will fight all the others constantly. Everyone's goal is to collect as many subjugated Centaur Hordes as possible. You receive 2 unique casus bellis for this purpose: the Subjugate Horde casus belli and the Tribal Conquest casus belli. Any Centaur tribe can be attacked and subjugated via Subjugation CB, but only neighboring countries can be attacked with the Tribal Conquest one. Manpower will be the main real issue at start, as Centaurs can and should be fielding huge armies while having a very low development base. Manpower can only truly be recovered via the Tribal Allegiance mechanic of conscripting from the tribes and then cancelling the 6 cavalries, or via the Centaur Mission 3. The pure cavalry fights deal a lot of damage very fast, so battles will be short and brutal. Don't forget that you prefer to be the attacker always, due to the Horde bonus to shock damage when attacking. Even so, the first few years can be very RNG intensive, and you may very easily lose your whole starting army with a roll of a die. Every Centaur tribe starts with the small Horde buff, which grants a bit of army maintenance reduction and supply limit increase. This way you can keep all your troops together in one army and roam the plains hunting the enemies. The mission tree increases the Horde bonus up to 50% army maintenance reduction and grants a lot of flat free manpower the more tribes are subjugated. Don't forget that one of the requirements for the missions is that you control a single province. You are free to migrate around the plains in between conquests for extra mana, but give extra land to your vassals until you have collected 11 hordes and are able to finish the final mission. If you subjugate a horde that has vassals of their own, all the enemy vassals will be set free and gain a truce with you. But if you annex the enemy leader's land, you will receive all of their vassals as subjugated hordes for yourself. This requires attacking with a tribal conquest or no CB on enemy horde leaders instead of subjugation. Be careful when battling other hordes. Don't take fights that are too dangerous. The subjugated hordes have some liberty desire reduction, so a strong Khan can keep them loyal. Losing too much power though will make you look weak and will give your subjects wacky ideas. Once they become disloyal, they can start allying with each other, which keeps them disloyal permanently. In the few seconds between wars, gradually migrate towards a nice province to prepare for settlement. I chose the province of Tegersh, a bit north of the Black Herd starting spot due to it being a grassland province with a center of trade, which is in principle easier to develop for institutions than the other available options. The aim in the first part of the game is to subjugate all the Centaurs while migrating to a nice grassland province. Research military technology and don't waste any mana on development just yet. After finishing the Colossal Horde mission, feel free to settle down. This means that you may renounce your one province status and begin growing in size as a nation. The conditions to choose the decision are either that 30 years have passed since the start of the game, or that you own more than one province. There are several ways to do this, but the very first step towards settlement is vassal integration. This is a unique mechanic to the Centaur hordes and can be done through the diplomatic screen. Integrating subjugated hordes can be done once every 2 years and will populate a few uncolonized neighboring provinces and increase development in the capital slightly. Only single province vassals can be integrated through this decision, so seize any extra provinces from your subjects if necessary. Once the first integration is done, you will receive the new settled horde government via decision. This is strictly a better version of the previous one that grants no malices, some extra manpower and force limit, and a free colonist to use as you please. By this time, the human cities on the island will start sending out colonies of their own to the plains. This is a bit annoying, but remember that their colonists bear a great gift. They bring the feudalism institution with them. It's worthwhile conquering their completed colonies for this reason alone. Be careful when conquering lands on the island itself, meaning the southern or northern cities region. Technically it's not an island, but let's just agree to call it that for simplicity's sake. The Federation lands will rebel often and violently, 20 units on each conquered province. Take lands only to force the feudalism institution, then raise the lands for extra mana and then release or return them back. You may keep any lands outside of those two regions. The Federation will bow to us, but not just yet. There should be enough Centaur hordes left to conquer in the mid-game. Feel free to start conquering the Ogre lands to the west as well. We will now begin encountering provinces with more than 3 development finally, which should be raised and pacified. Do not stop fighting, wage war continuously, concentrate on winning battles as much as you can, and set the general vassal focus to siege. Hunt down each single unit that roams around desperately trying to escape the horde's wrath, and let our vassals waste their manpower on sieges. The next leg of our journey starts in the year 1500. Once the year 1500 hits, we should be fulfilling one of 3 conditions. These conditions are counting our development, wars, and battles won. If the conditions are met, we may unleash the monstrous storm upon the world by uniting the clans under a great Khan and form the Kurain Ulaik. We receive an alternative to the vassal integration as well, the Negir. This decision simply integrates neighboring Centaur vassals with no extra effect, and is designed for those vassals that have too many provinces for whatever reason. The Kurain national ideas are awesome, and the old Centaur ideas should be ditched. The ideas contain 33% extra government capacity, 20% siege ability to counteract the natural centaur penalty, and 20% core creation cost reduction, among additional cavalry combat bonuses. The previous Horde mission bonus is lost, but we gain a permanent unification zeal bonus. Just look at these modifiers. This is everything you want and more. Morale of armies, tons of manpower, CCR, harsh treatment costs, and a minus 0.1 monthly war score exhaustion if you add the bonus from the Curain national ideas. At this point, manpower will stop being a burden anymore. Oh, did I say the buff was permanent? Well, I lied. It's not permanent. You can see the duration of the buff in the decision menu, and from this moment onwards, the game turns into a race to not lose the unification zeal. Losing the zeal will essentially end your playthrough. Not only do you lose the exceptional bonuses, but the Salgay disaster will trigger, which will destroy you. I don't see a legitimate way to realistically succeed at winning this disaster. There are two ways to extend the duration of the zeal bonus. One is to hold tournaments. This is done via decisions, and tournaments can be organized every 10 years. They will drain our coffers. The bigger the investment, the larger the potential reward. Tournaments can only be initiated during peacetime, and they include a number of random events where your leader may win or lose. If the leader loses, you lose some buff duration, and possibly the leader itself. If the leader wins, you gain some duration. Due to the nature of this event, there is a decent chance that the leader will lose. I have no shame loading the game if this happens. Losing a few tournaments will result in a failed run, and that's never fun. The main way to increase the buff is through the new mission tree. The first targets are the Fat Hide Ogres and the Lake Federation. Eventually, you can extend the buff by conquering into the neighboring lands towards former Castanor, the Salaha Desert, Rachen, Bulvar, and the Deep Woods. All other missions require you to win many battles. That is why fighting enemy armies is so important. The bottom of the mission tree allows you to collect military bonuses from defeated enemy races. Bully the ogres before conquering all their lands for their shock damage bonus before you wipe them off the map, and try to bully the goblins as early as you can for that siege ability. The Spider Wretch clan is close and isolated enough for this. I will simply declare war on them and then set waypoints for one of my armies via shift clicking across their lands, so that they wipe out any armies that they create. It's disgusting, but it must be done for the glory of the Khan. Winning battles will eventually unlock the storm buffs. These give ever-growing military buffs, more manpower, more force limit, more cavalry compatibility, and more land maintenance reduction, with a corruption decrease cherry on top to mainly counteract the monetary effects of overextension. If you fight a single war at a time, at this point you're not fighting hard enough. Very important note, once the Hordes are united under the Curain flag, you should be owning the two provinces that border the Federation Island on its western border. These are Tirugun and Sokharain. The names in these regions are atrocious. Owning these provinces will unlock the lake subjugation casus belli. If you remember, holding lands directly on the island is very costly, so this is your alternative. Declare on all the island nations. All the Lake Federation tags that are not at war with you should have an active truce. Attack all the possible ones at once. Their troops will stand no chance against the Centaur Hurricane, and the unification zeal timer is ticking. The Federation mechanics will have certain nations jump to the defense of others for every declared war, so try to focus on subjugating those first and declare on all free nations in parallel. Declare tribal conquest if you want to clean your borders and annex the lands on the mainland and subjugate every other nation. Do this as fast as possible to complete the missions and disband this federation for good. When subjugated, the lake nations will act as tributaries with very low liberty desire. They will be our main source of income in the early stages of the storm. As a horde, our own lands are quite poor and tournaments are expensive events. Milk the bigger nations for mana if you feel the need to do so while completing idea sets, for example. You cannot be aggressive enough. Pillage and subjugate the Federation as fast as you can. Do not peace out the Federation defenders too soon, or they will join your other active wars, but do peace out nations separately. Every peace deal means a victorious war, and collecting wins is important. Once the whole island is under hoof, sense the smell of fear brought by the steppe winds from the neighboring lands. My second target was to the south. It made most sense. The Raji lands in Rahen are relatively isolated, fabulously rich, with development and cash, while their armies stand no chance against the Horde. Focusing on slaughtering the Harimari armies for extra movement speed, another military bonus that I'm personally very fond of. On your way to the heart of the Raj, you should be getting enough Wars 1 under the belt to unlock the Divine Wind mission and buff. This is the icing on the cake. the steroids that make this horde a force of nature like no other. Stability hit to declare wars -5 means that you incur no penalty when attacking a country that has a truce with you. Truces lose all meaning. War is never ending. You may attack a nation, get all its money in a war, break its alliances, attack again, take lands, raise them, give them back or not, attack again, take more, never stop. The aggressive expansion will be doubled, so from now on the diplomatic game will dissolve into nothingness. There is no diplomacy, only war. Countries will cower and will form coalitions. They will calculate their numbers and odds and attack. Let them, this is good. They will only give you more province war score, cost reduction, reinforced speed and cost. You may have the whole continent of Bulvar attacking you with dwarves on their side. Sweep their armies, drench the sands in blood and fat until 50% war score, piece them out, then attack them while they have a truce and burn their lands. You may choose to demonstrify or not. The unjustified demands bonus and the diplomatic reputation malus are not affecting anything at this point, but the events that grant government reform progress can be quite valuable for the Horde. Pump everything that you can into expanding the administration for maximum government capacity and switch your Horde government reforms as you please. There is no reason to renounce the Horde government. From now on, it's a constant whirlwind. Perhaps keep some cash farms in Rahen. Mana stops existing as a concept when you gain the tier 5 barbaric despoilers government reform. Overextension is merely a number. See the rebel sentiment rise and use harsh treatment on all the rebels. All added harsh treatment reduction bonuses will reduce the cost to a minimum of 5 military mana no matter the rebel size. Hitting rebels with harsh treatment can be quite tedious, but less tedious than having to run around after rebel armies. All this while eventually being able to keep 10 extremely strong generals at a time with no penalties, as well as a free military policy. Raising lands will provide so much mana that it really stops being a mechanic anymore. You can pick technologies a decade ahead of time and replenish your stockpile to maximum in a heartbeat. Coring cost is reduced so much that in combination with the mana from raising, there is no issue coring everything all the time. I choose to release Verkalgulan as a vassal and let them advance their mission tree to prepare for the Rotunda of Bells mission, which grants +1 maximum policies after integration. I was lucky enough to have the kobolds in the Serpent Spine survive initially, so I could bully them early for their force limit bonus, but really the main challenge late game was to find some gnomes still alive to smack the fire damage defense bonus out of them. With setting up trade companies in the conquered lands, money also stops being a problem. Even before the age of absolutism, manpower, cash, diplomacy and mana become obsolete. The Centaur hordes are also undefeatable in open terrain or in rough terrain, doesn't matter. Late game, the main rival becomes the lack of visibility. This might be a reason to switch religions early, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. All the maps have to be manually explored or stolen from other nations. Boats are also quite fragile due to the massive morale malices, but simply build hundreds of heavy ships and scare every other navy away. The Centaur hordes, if they survive the very first stages of the game, are a dizzying experience that takes the game and breaks it over its knee with extreme prejudice and violence. A screaming tornado of murder like nothing else in the game. It's intense and very fun power trip as long as you are able to keep the unification zeal up, of course. The zeal mechanic is the reason why this would be a terrible play on Iron Man or in multiplayer. I will add some short mentions on the faction mechanic and the disaster before I let you be. The faction mechanic is clearly unfinished, but the way it works, or it wants to work, is that during the conquest of various geographical regions, certain factions are spawned via event. The Burning Spear in the deserts of Salahad, Tigerbane in the Rahen, Verdant Bliss in Escan and Deep Woods, and the Raging Blizzard in the Reach and non-Scandinavia. These become national factions with respective bonuses and malices if they are in power and receive province modifiers in their respective territories. When factions spawn, they remove the crown land system and the tribe's estate. In my experience, for a time, after spawning two of the factions, they disappeared at some point. Didn't notice when, because I was busy conquering, but they granted the crown land and tribe estate mechanics again, just to be lost when the third faction spawned. It's a janky system and I don't think it works as fully intended yet, or is something that I'm missing. What is worth mentioning is that when the Unification Zeal buff is lost and the Salgay disaster fires, these factions will spawn one by one as nations and declare war on you. They will have a 50% moral advantage among other things and can be completely pacified with a full 100% war score against them. They spawn in quick succession and must all be defeated in order to end the disaster. This is very difficult and costly. In a relatively early game, this is an immediate game over. Later in the game, I think they could potentially be defeated, but I just stacked so much buff duration that they can only spawn too late in the game to matter. The faction system is an interesting concept, but not implemented fully, and the loss of 15% maximum absolutism is a bit of a shame, but not the end of the world. I do prefer having the Verdant Bliss in power for an extra unrest reduction, I guess. I hope you have the same fun that I had playing the Centaur Hordes. I'm sure there are many wacky interactions that can be done to make playing as the Hordes even more ridiculous as it is, and I would be interested to hear any fun ideas. Take care and have fun.